are very different books. So it's quite hard to sort of throw a question at them that they can both answer, because they're very, very different books, and they really represent, if you like, the spectrum, the very broad spectrum of thriller writing, of crime thriller writing. But they are both contemporary. They're both, i.e. Entirely and Adams, mostly set in a China, specifically more Beijing of today. If you take away a word tonight, it's going to be the word dangle, to dangle something, which is to attempt to lure you, to draw you in to becoming a spy, or betraying your country, or working for a foreign intelligence service by offering you something. I think that's probably about correct. And this is what happens to your character, Philip Mangan, a journalist, when he's in Beijing. And you claim that this actually happened to you.
God's honest truth, it really did. And it's actually not that unusual in China. It's happened numerous times. Happened to me, happened to my wife, happened to other people I've known. So I was in the BBC Beijing bureau one Sunday afternoon. I was by myself. I was just about to leave and go home. A guy came and knocked on the door and demanded to speak to a BBC journalist. And so I brought him in and sat him down, and he reached into his briefcase and he pulled out 2 secret Chinese government documents and tried to get me to accept them. And they weren't terribly secret. They were at a low level of classification. They were nabled Sankar. They were like sort of internal or restricted government documents. But certainly things that foreign journalists should not be seen with, things you didn't talk about in polite conversation. He was very persistent, this guy. He kept on trying to get me to accept these documents. I sent him away. He came back a couple of weeks later. He kept calling. And then he made his pitch, which was that he had information relating to what he called experimental satellite launches that he wanted to pass to the British Embassy. And would I take him to the British Embassy and introduce him to the right people, please? At which point, the shutters came down, I booted him out and got rid of him. I'm pretty sure that was a dangle. It was a provocation. It was somebody trying to figure out if they could get me to accept secret documents, either to put me in a compromising position or to see if I was actually a freelancer or an intelligence officer working under natural cover as a journalist. This happens from time to time. It's not that unusual. The story gives rise to my first novel, Night Heron. I sent the guy away. My character in the book doesn't. He takes the documents, and the story moves from there.
But do you think China as a place for espionage novels, for the spy thriller to be, it's now a viable way of doing it? You've shown that it's viable.
I mean, the first thing is that in reality, there is a huge espionage effort directed against China by Western countries, particularly by the Brits and by the Americans, and some other countries too. 1 or 2 Asian countries are very, very active. And the way that we come to know a little bit about this is because when these people get discovered, they are sent to court. And what we have discovered is really quite shocking in terms of the amount of stuff that's going on, but also in the kind of originality with which Western spy agencies are finding ways of operating in China despite that problem, the problem of the white guy. The internet is a very potent spying tool. Western spy agencies are using online chat rooms to recruit Chinese people to go out and spy for them. Quite low-level stuff, taking photographs, subscribing to military journals, stuff like that. Western spy organizations are using Westerners that they trust as what my guy is in the novel, what they call an access agent. In other words, a guy that you use to send into China in order to communicate with your Chinese agent. Asia is so febrile at the moment, and China particularly. Change is happening so fast. There's so much geostrategic tension right beneath the surface. And so many of these countries are kind of haunted by their pasts. There are so many ghosts, in China and in Korea and in Indonesia and in Cambodia that, and these aren't quiescent ghosts. They're out there sort of howling, ghosts of conscience and trauma that are powerful influences in Asian life. So I think it's a wonderful place to think about writing suspense novels.
Adam's book is very understandable within a genre that we're very familiar with in this country and in the West of the spy novel, the thriller. We know what territory we're stepping into in the broadest sense, in genre sense, when we go there. With Yi, we're really not sure what to expect when we get this book. It seems to me very different to most other contemporary Chinese literature at the moment. And I think, first of all, I'd like to try and get an idea of, the publicist blurb for this book talks about Camus, Dostoevsky, Kafka, and a whole host of people as being perhaps inspirers, or that this book is in the tradition of. But I wondered where Yi himself sees this book in terms of Chinese writing. What genre is he seeing within? What is his reference points for this?
我非常喜欢法国的作家加缪和那个德语作家卡夫卡，就是这本书肯定是受了他们的影响。加缪最出名的一部作品就是《局外人》，写了一个叫莫尔索的青年，他基本上就是跟这个社会分离开了。最后，这个社会主要是司法系统把这个人就是一个过失犯罪，最后把他给判处死刑，就是一个局外人，就是一个社会的局外人，最后被司法系统给玩弄的。然后我写的这个故事，其实也是一个和社会没有关系的人，他跟社会建立不起了任何关系，他就像是被那个社会给放逐出来了。最后他决定他要跟这个社会产生一点关系，因此他就和这个社会玩了一个游戏。
我先翻译一下。I definitely like Camus very much, and also Kafka. So I think that my book has been influenced by their work. Kafka's book, Stranger, talks about a young person who is separated from society. And society presents itself in the justice system. And so for the crime that the main character commits, he is given capital punishment. So you can tell in the story in Stranger that society punishes the main character for not being connected with society. In my story, the main character is also disconnected from society. And in the end, he's completely isolated, but he wants to be able to interact with society, so he decides to play a game.
因为他特别无聊，就是非常无聊，可以说是一种深刻的无聊，所以他就决定和警方，就是警察，玩一个猫捉老鼠的游戏，就是他去杀害一个人，然后让警察来追他，这样他就觉得有人来追他，他的生活就可以充实起来。这个小说其实还是根据一个真实的案例改的。
Basically, the main character is extremely bored, is deeply, deeply bored. And so he gets this idea that he wants to play a game of cat and mouse with the police. This idea continues to develop, and he decides to kill someone and hope that the police will chase him. Because if that happens, his life would have meaning. And then he goes on from this point.
因为害怕警方追捕不力，就是追捕的那个
走到
对，追捕的那个程度不够，所以他就杀害了一位那个非常漂亮、身世又非常可怜，让人极度同情的一位女同学，然后这样就会造成了社会上的极大反响，因为社会上产生了极大的反响，所以警方的压力特别大，所以就布置了很多警力来抓他，所以整个他的逃亡过程，他就会享受到那种逃亡的那种充实感，这是他设计的一个游戏。
At one point, the main character is a little worried that if he chooses a target that's not important in society, the police won't bother even chasing him. So therefore, he chooses someone who is beautiful and who is accomplished and who also happens to be a classmate of his. And she is someone that society cares about, who society would feel empathetic towards. And as soon as he decides to kill this person, that influences society. They respond and they say, we must find this killer. Which means that more and more policemen will come chasing after the main character, and the main character can really feel the thrill of running away from the police. And that's how he sets up this game for himself so that his life has meaning.
这本书有3个名字，在英国版就叫《完美犯罪》。在中国它是叫下面我该干些什么。下面我该干些什么是一句那个安东尼·伯吉斯的一本叫《发条城》的书，里面有3个无聊的青年，他们总是会问他们自己一个问题，很无聊的时候会问自己一个问题：下面我该干些什么？就是意思是说他们不知道要干些什么好，就反映了一种无聊。还有一个名字就叫《猫和老鼠》。
Okay. In a way, this book has 3 names. You might know the English name as A Perfect Crime. The original Chinese name is What Should I Do Next? And I chose that name from a Latin American writer called Brookes, because he has a story about 3 bored youth, and they never know what to do with each other. They don't know what to do. And so they constantly ask each other, what should I do next? What should I do next? That's how bored they are. And the 3rd name for the book is The Cat and Mouse Game.
One of the things that's interesting is that this book is a thriller. We are driven onto the next page as we read through it. And yet, in a sense, I'm wondering how he managed to maintain the pace as a thriller, because in a sense we know that the murderer will get caught. He knows he will get caught. The sense that you cannot escape justice in a system such as China's, with the surveillance and the amount of police and the justice system demanding a confession. We know that he won't get away with it. He says that he doesn't intend to get away with it. If by some means the police are incompetent enough not to kill him, to catch him, he's going to give himself up anyway.
可能有2个方面，一个是用那个第一人称，就是用我的这个来叙述，这个用第一人称来述说一个罪案的故事，是加缪的《局外人》里面就是用这种方式。然后《局外人》这本书是模仿的是那个詹姆斯·凯恩的那个邮差总案2变0，一个美国的一个犯罪作家。他也是用一种我的方式来描述的。另外有一个就是我曾经在报社工作过8、9年。报社他写新闻的时候，他有一点他是特别强调用动词，用动作，他这样就会导致节奏会非常快，就像在跑步一样的写作，
I think there's 2 aspects that help keep the pace. First of all, we keep it in the first-person perspective, which is the same as The Stranger, written by Camus. And there's a couple of other thrillers that are written this way because it keeps you moving forward and wanting to know what happens next. The other reason is that I used to work in editing. I used to work as an editor in a publishing company. And in publishing, as well as in news, working as a reporter, you always need to use a lot of verbs. And you're encouraged to write about actions instead of about things. And so I think that keeps the pace so that we feel like we're running through the book.
另外就是他逃跑本身，他也会带来一定的悬念，就是这个主人公他在逃跑过程中，他会不会被抓住，也会吸引读者。
And of course, the whole aspect of running away is very exciting, and it keeps you moving because the reader wants to know, will he get caught when he turns around the next corner? When is he going to get caught?